So next, we move on to the next ARC player that I want to cover today that ended up going 4-1 with another Warhorde list. This get is Bryce Bennett. So let's take a look at Bryce Bennett's list. Sorry, where he was at, and then his list. So he got second place at the TLM Layton November GT. This was in America. 39 players at this event, and he ended up going 4-1, losing his third game. So let's take a look at his Warhorde list. Did he say I rock? Oh no, Jayhoon rocks. Yeah, Jayhoon does rock. Dude. Thank you very much, Jayhoon, like always. Shout out to everybody in chat. Whoa, I was trying to get stuck in real quick because I was like 5 minutes late, so I just jumped right into it. But I see all your walls and all you gets. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. He said barely a knob. Yeah, you. He said you're oh Jim Jones is a knob. All right, so we have Bryce Bennett's Warhorde list, and here we go, boys. It's time for the Squighog Boyz. I'll just break it to you right now. Squighog Boyz are also on the next list we're gonna cover. So we have Zodgrod Wortsnagga, a Beastboss with Follow Me Lads, and then 2 other beast bosses with no enhancements. Then the real twist kicker to me is a beast boss on Squigosaur with cunning but brutal. Cunning but brutal. So we'll talk about that. And then a Death Killer Word Trike with Super Cyborg Body. Then we have 3 10-man units of Beast Snagga Boys, of course, to accompany those beast bosses. A big brick of super runs for Zodgrod Wortsnagga, followed by 1 small unit of Grots. A unit of Kommandos, because you absolutely gain massive value from having the infiltration to go right before your scouting. Then we have 1 5-man unit of Storm Boys, followed by a 10-man unit of Storm Boys. Yes, a 10-man unit of Storm Boys made it on the list. Another 5-man unit of Storm Boys, followed by a big fat brick of Squighog Boyz, and then 2 individual kill rigs. Yes, I absolutely like this list. Let's go. This list has all the fun. It brings all the juice, all the chaotic energy and the pressure. Let's talk about it. So we already know about Zog and Kommandos coming up, helping each other, get momentum, gain the initiative, actually create space for the kill rigs as well. Kill rigs can buff Zoggrot or the Kommandos with +1 strength. But you know what else we have here? The Storm Boy unit. So you guys all know, but we tend to forget that the Storm Boys also have advance and charge. A lot of the time when it's a 5-man unit, you're like, they're going to do absolutely nothing, these guys, right? But if you have the momentum and the pressure of a 10-man unit of Storm Boys where you can possibly throw Here We Go on them, and you have a Death Killer Ward Trike, auto advancing 6 with the 4 of Feel No Pain, a unit of Kommandos, and then Zodgrod Wortsnagga, followed by 1 Beast Boss unit with Follow Me Lads trailing behind them, disembarking from that rig that was created space for from the Kommandos and the Snickrot. You have a ton of front forward pressure, just running people down. So if this list goes into any of these armies that don't want pressure and don't want stuff right in their face, I'm sure they'll do quite well into them, and I'm sure he'll help contribute to his high scoring placing. Now, one thing here that I want to point out about his Beast Boss and Squigosaur, who's also his Warlord, is that he has Cunnle but Brutal on it. So that's so he can fall back, shoot, and charge. Normally, you have Edwapa's Kill Chopper on this guy. I'm actually an advocate for this guy coming down 15, 20 points so he can get whatever enhancements you put on him for free, because I think he's almost not worth it because he does no damage. Yet in this case, Bryce understood, even if I give him Edwapa's Kill Chopper, I already have 3 other Beast Bosses with devastating wounds, flat 2 damage. I need something different here. I need something that can continue perpetual momentum and not get bogged down by my crappy movement, essentially, from these Squighog Boys, and really take advantage of their durability. So he threw Cunning but Brutal on his Squighog Boy brick. A lot of the time, your Squighog Boy unit doesn't get one shot annihilate, erased immediately, right? You'll save them for the wall, and then they'll come around the wall. They'll peek around the terrain, around up the field, charge in there, stab something, and then you'll lose like 6 6 of the models at least, right? And you have 1, 2 Squighog Boys left, and then the Beast Boss and Squigosaur. He's not going to do anything anymore in combat because they lost Lance, or did they? That's where Cutting What Brutal comes in. Fall back. You try to steal people's objectives. You get into a skirmish fight. You try to hold down another enemy transport or vehicle. So that ends up becoming a utility more than a killy piece. So I really like how he did that. This guy's going to do quite well into hopefully, armies that don't want to be pressured and jumped on. Shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our Waaaghtaktiks dice. So shout them out. Check them out in the description, 5% off in the discount, because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Baron of Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. So let's take a look at what he goes into for, he has all the tools to do well into them, I would say. Not that he can auto beat them, but I'm sure it helps contribute to his good scores that he put up here. So let's take a look at his first matchup. Taking a Stampa to the GT. Let's go. See his next meta. So we have in his first game, he's going into Gene Stealer Cult. So we have 3 Abominants, 2 Biophages, a Kellamorph, a Patriarch, and a Sanctus. So we already know there's a bunch of Aberrants coming here. Muscle Beach making a comeback. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of Acolytes Aberrants. 3 of them have Flamers. 3 units of 5 Aberrants. These guys have Feel No Pains. They punch very well, respectably, and they're going to get back up and come back to life, just like their character is going to get back up and actually come back to life because that's on his dash sheet capability. We have 2 individual Achilles Ridge Runners. These guys give additional AP when they target something. So everybody else that targets it gets additional AP. 1 Goliath Rock Grinder. 3 units of Pure Strain Gene Stealers. One of them being a big 10-man unit for that Brood Lord, essentially, which is the Pure Strain. What's he called in this? A Patriarch, excuse me. So this is very much how Gene Stealers run their game. You know, I've actually had the privilege of actually playing Gene Stealers at an RTT. A lot of the time, what they're looking to do is they're going to throw these Patriarch, these Pure Strains at you. Expect them to die and slow you down because they have little invuls, they have 2 wounds a pop. And then they're looking for them to immediately come back to life as soon as possible, throw them on the field, take advantage of their high speed, and run back into you again, and constantly keep doing that. So expect the Pure Strains to immediately end up on your, in your face. They're wanting them to die, and they're wanting them to come back to life, while the Aberrants essentially take position and follow up with charge, and then they rinse and repeat. They have a bunch of different little units, so they can 10-man units, so they can score with, so they can even try to slow you down and bug you down some more, so more things can come back to life, with a couple little units that do jank, like the Kellamorph, who can pretty much overwatch you and I believe move or something like that. So as for are they super meta, it takes a really niche, nuanced GSE player to be super good, but when you play them, just know that continue momentum, stuff them into their deployment zone, because you are, eventually if they do keep coming back to life, you can run a momentum, but you don't want them in position to be scoring heavily after that. You want to shove them back in their deployment zone. I know that's harder to do than said, easier said than done because they have a bunch of Pure Strains, but then again, you look at this list, like we said with Bryce's list, where he has Zod, he has a Death Killer Wartrike, he has 10-man unit of Storm Boys in this place and his Kommandos. So 10-man unit of Storm Boys, can hypothetically, especially on Umbrella Carnage, go toe to toe with the Gene Stealer unit. It wouldn't be optimal because there's a good chance you're going to end up dying in return, but you can help clean it up if it ends up losing several models already. And you can even jump over that Gene Stealer unit and run into something else and charge it if you don't even want to, because you're not inhibited by because the jetpack. Sure, your bikers maybe are stuck in combat because your bikers, from the Death Killer Wartrike, even though there are no bikers on the list, but I meant the Death Killer Wartrike himself, he can get stuck into the Gene Stealers and not really get problematic because he'll just be like, whatever, I'll charge right into you guys and flame you up, get in a fight with you. Zodgrod and his boys shooting pistols at these Gene Stealers, kill them a little bit quicker and kind of help peel them away. Or you might end up using Zodgrod as just a big old screen, have him act as an umbrella, take the Pure Strain charge on, and then delete all the Pure Strains in response. So it gives you options. Of course, that the Pure Strains can bog down your Squigs, your kill rigs. Now you allow you not to position at all. So definitely have to be aggressive, and you have to understand how to position to not only soak that possible turn 1 charge, but retaliate, clean them up, and continue to create space. So whenever you're going to GSC, just know, put the pedal to the metal and run those little bugs over. So then we go into his second matchup, which is the Hypercrypt Legion. Again, Hypercrypt. So we got a Nightbringer followed by 2 Hexmark Destroyers and then a Silent. A Spider, 2 units of Deathmark, 2 Doomsday Arcs, a Filleted one, 2 units of Locust Destroyers, and then a Tesseract Vault. So a little bit memeish, but just keep in mind, just say it real quick, the fact that the Silent King can be picked up and placed anywhere with these Doomsday Arcs and this Tesseract Vault means that he's laying down tremendous firepower on somebody when he does. So yes, a little bit memeish. He did get 98 points here because my boy has multiple beast bosses. He has a big old unit of Squighog Boyz going against Hypercrypt, so he can take up a lot of the table speed of the Kommandos and Zod, which is definitely what's going to help you in this matchup, so you can actually score very well. Because believe it or not, the Silent King with those Doomsday Arc and that Tesseract Vault are annihilating your Squighog Boyz. They're picking up the whole unit possibly in one turn. They're dealing with quick kill rigs and stuff like that. But if you're able to position, because you have infiltration and scout and a bunch of fast units, and not allow them to just stake up all their gun lane, their gun, lines of sight that they want, you can score heavily and heavily punish them when they do pick a spot on the table. So I really like to see it. This is one of those armies that for his list design. That very unique version of Warhorde, of this pure pressure Warhorde list, does very well into something even like Hypercrypt that wants to up you down all over the place. But we look at his third matchup. This is the one game that he did end up losing. But what did he lose to? I'll give you a second to think. Give you a second to think about it. 1, 2, 3. It was to Astra Militarum, which is a little disappointing, actually. Not to you, my friend. Don't worry. You did not disappoint me at all. It's disappointing because your list is the kind of list, our boys list that we're covering right now, with Bryce Bennett, is the sort of list that you would think would have a good chance of beating Astra Militarum. So, and I think in this one, it was a close game because it's a 63-point win to a 61 point. So it was super, super close, right? He only lost by 2 points. I'm looking at that right. So he only lost to this guy by 2 points. So he did have the tools to beat him. So it was sad to see that. But looking at it, you're like, ooh, he has every tools to win to beat guard. But let's take a look at some of the units that he probably used well to help win as a guard player, and some of these combos that you be aware of, because I'm telling you what, Bryce's list was almost designed specifically to deal with something like guard. So we have Sly Marble, the meme king himself. Let's just look at him real quick, just in case you haven't seen him. So this guy, this model can shoot when you target units that are within 3 of him. Oh my god, sorry. I haven't sneezed on stream before. That's the first time. Excuse me, everybody. And when this guy, sorry, this made me lose my frame. So after he shoots, he gets to make a normal move. Excuse me, I just tripped me out. He can take orders, so then he can take an order and get additional movement to his movement. So he could be moving 9. So he can end up just dipping out and just shooting all over the field and running around the field, being hilarious. He's a lone op. He has stealth. He's an infiltrator. He has respectable combat because infantry 2+. He can just kind of get in the way and be really annoying. He is kind of like a Snickrot, where it's like, trust me, I know he's on your list, and you can think, oh, he bring him everywhere. He must be easy to use. He's not. He does take a little bit of niche understanding to use well. You have Ursula Creed. She can give 2 orders. She'll most likely be in a command squad with some infantry unit brick. We have a Miltom command squad, which is the Warlord. That way they can actually get outside with the Tempestor Prime as the Warlord. That way they can actually have battle line as their Tempestor Scions. You have 1 platoon command squad and 2 tank commanders, 1 Catachan jungle fighter unit. 3 Catachan jungle fighter units, followed by 1 big brick of basic infantry, which will go with this platoon command squad. They will get a 6-up Feel No Pain, and then most likely as well where Ursula Creed is. That way she can get Master Vox, so she can give up to 2 orders 24 inches away. So she can be spreading those orders out all over the field to those frontline. Oops, as a gene seal list unit up. To those frontline units that are kind of getting in the way, right? Followed by a big brick of Scions, a 5-man unit of Scions, 3 2-man unit, 3 2-man units of field ordnance batteries. We'll look at those in a second. A big brick of Aquilons, a 10-man unit of Rough Riders, and 2 Lehman Russ exterminators with their auto cannons, because boy, those boys are everywhere. So of course, with his field ordnance battery, these guys have the field guns for their indirect fire. They get heavy, so they get +1 to hit, and then they get sustains 1 built into them if they're stationary, which of course they will be. They also get lethal, so they can also have access to these strats like suppression, so you subtract 1 to your hit, or fields of fire, so they get additional armor penetration. So that's just a bunch of indirect fire, which as an orc player that you hate it. Even any amount of little bit of indirect fire sucks really bad for you, because then they're picking up your little grots that you're leaving in your backfield over time. They can shoot your damage units as they're staging if they ever get popped by the trucks. If your trucks ever get popped by the tanks. A lot of the time you're talking about as an orc player how once something like a kill rig gets popped and your Beastboss boys get out, they get disembarked in a safe spot. Having those field ordnance batteries would suck so much. As for this sort of pressure, though, the pressure design behind this list, Bryce list, shows so much potential so that he can actually defeat Astra Militarum and even bring it to this close of a game, because he's already starting in the middle of the table, just like the Astra Militarum player is, and he's bringing in multiple bodies that have the capability to actually clear those guard guys out and actually hold their ground, like something like a Death Killer Wartrike. And then even when the Beastboss on Squigosaur does come out, because he is cutting more brutal, he can continue to move forward after he makes his initial charges. You do have to worry about Zod stealing home objectives. Kill rigs can actually hurt stuff with their with their cannons. So tanks could have possibly eventually got killed throughout the game. Super, super close game to actually say who won this. Just know that I find Bryce's list highly respectable and very unique way to deal with kind of these gunline pressuring versions of armies, gunline armies, and delivering pressure into them that is a bit unique to orcs, because typically we're looking for just like a bunch of trucks and just run you down. In this case, he's bringing multitude of different units that can bring different forms of this pressure and great mobility. So great job to you, Bryce, because to even make the game this close against guard in the certain current state of where they're at, and a lot of the tools that he had shows, the fact that you understood what you were trying to do with their list, even with least, in my opinion, least optimal type of units like the Squighog Boyz, for example. Even though it's a very cool, idea and way to use them, that sort of unit's still getting picked up and kind of dismantled by guard to a certain extent, right? They just have the firepower and such, and a lot of units in the meta do. So bravado for bringing it. No big deal for losing the guard, especially by like a 2-point game, especially because you continue to move forward with great success. Let's just talk about your game 4. So game 4, he goes into Eldari. So we have our a Avatar of Cain, Farseer, 2 units of Guardian Defenders, 1 big brick of Storm Guardians, Rangers, and then 1 Fatos Knight with melee, and then Swooping Talks, followed by another Fat Knight. Of course, like we talked about with how much, board presence this list has, there's only a matter of time until Squigs, Beastboss, Kill Rigs, something to that magnitude really, makes contact with those rates and they get torn apart. So let's take a look at his final matchup. And let's see what he does going into his final matchup, where he goes into Vanguard Space Marines. So Vanguard Space Marines, a lot of the time you hear about them, but you never actually get to go into them. So our boy had to go into them. They can come off table edge and do a lot of devastating firepower, reactive move shenanigans, stuff like that. But let's take a look. So we have a Apothecary Biologist, a Lieutenant, remember, Vanguard's Spearhead, Lieutenant Combi Bolter, Malnius Calgar, and Uriel Ventress. Manius Kalmar is disgusting. Everybody knows because everybody's talking about him, Art of War, everybody like that. Just know he's highly durable. He can feel no pain. He can reduce damage. He fights really well at twin length, and he leads respectable units. Then we have an Impulsor, only 1 unit of Jump Back Intercessors, 1 6-man unit of Blade Guard, a Centurion Devastator squad. These guys are coming up. These guys have Uppy Downy in Vanguard, which allows them to actually get line of sight with all these twin las cannons. Ooh. And I think they get like additional AP and +1 to hit. Really, really good when they come in from reserves. Then we have Company of Heroes, very durable, respectable unit right there. Eradicator squad, big 6-man unit. An Inceptor squad, big 6-man unit with plasma. 1 Infiltrator squad, followed by 2 Scouts. Very typical, Vanguard Space Marine type of list. Has all tools you need. Very, very niche style of play. 1, mismaneuvering against something like orcs, and you're getting run over in that play. And this kind of looks like what happened here. 98-point win there by Mr. Bryce Bennett. Just because imagine how much board control he already has when starting the game, and then running you down with all the different orc units that you're just like, oh, you're ready in my face. And of course, like someone was saying in chat, Power Call City. Yeah, something Vanguard doesn't want is a bunch of different orc units that can cover distance very quickly and make you have to choose what you want to react to move and when. And if you don't, well, oops, you're out of position. I get to beat you up and crump you down. So shout out to Mr. Bryce Bennett, whoa, with War Horde for the pressure wall. Or should I say the high pressure wall? Because I really, really like that, dude. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!